Hi everyone, this is Navika Choda, Cloud Engineer, Microsoft Most Valuable Professional in Azure category and a LinkedIn top voice in cloud computing. I warmly welcome each one of you to the 22nd episode of Tech Chat with Navika, where today we would be discussing a very important topic that should not be missed. That is cloud sustainability and its challenges. And to help us understand that a bit more better, we have an absolute prominent speaker with us today, Mr. Eric Berg. Eric is a Microsoft Most Valuable Professional and Azure category for consecutive 9 years or more. He is currently a Vice President and a Microsoft Global Alliance Manager at CGI. Eric is an extremely experienced professional, and his area of expertise is in Azure, cloud governance, automation, hybrid infrastructure, and management solutions. Apart from that, he has been making significant amount of contributions in the area of cloud for more than 10 years. He is a well-known and a high-rated speaker at big tech conferences such as Microsoft Ignite, MVP Summit, Microsoft Ignite The Tour, Experts Live, Azure Saturday, Cloud and Data Center Conference, and the list goes on. It is my absolute pleasure to host you today on the podcast, Eric. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Great. Then let's get started with the podcast because this is one topic which I really cannot wait to discuss further with you. So let's get started then. Um, you know, as we're seeing that technology has sort of, it's being extensively used by everyone now. It is extremely important that it is environment friendly and that it is sustainable. And as we talk about sustainable technology, I think cloud computing, I would say, is one of the most appropriate example of sustainable technology. And henceforth, the topic for today is cloud sustainability and its challenges. Now, before we actually move on and deep dive into the topic that is cloud sustainability, I think we can just take a step back and try to understand that what sustainable technology is all about at the first place. So, can you just help us with that, please?
Yeah, for sure. I think the word sustainability became a buzzword like cloud and like AI these days. So many people are talking about sustainability without knowing what it means. I guess even many products now get the badge of sustainable. And I'm like, okay, but what's sustainable about you? So
Yeah.
from that perspective, yeah, it's super important to understand what are we talking about. In the end, sustainability means the balancing of the three major layers: the social impact of something, the environmental impact on something, and the economic impact of something. So to make it super easy, I want to have a company that's super successful and earns a lot of money. So I want the economic impact of my company to be good. It should earn a lot of money for all of us so I can employ a lot of people. That's great. At the same time, I need to take care of the people in my business so that the social component, people shouldn't work to death, people should be healthy, people should have enough time for their families, things like that. And at the same time, we should do that while keeping an eye on the environment. And I guess that's the most prominent part of sustainability, that the environment piece, due to global warming and then all the things we see in the last couple of years, many people think sustainability is just about the environment. But in the end, it's really about balancing business interests, people interests, and environmental interests, and finding the best equilibrium, well, for horrible word for German, the best balance across those three. So yeah, that's pretty much the understanding here.
That's right. And I just loved how simply you actually explained that to us. Social impact, environment sustainability, and then, of course, making economic benefits. And I think as we talk about these three key factors, I think cloud computing actually helps us achieve each of these three. Obviously helps in cost reduction and then, reduces the carbon emission because we have service online, right? So let's just now try to understand that what cloud sustainability is all about, and according to your perspective, why is it the need of all?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you were saying earlier, like what's technology sustainability, and then you can move forward into like cloud sustainability. I would say in the past, like in the first industrial revolution, a lot of things were about getting electrified, getting steam engines, things like that. that was also a thing about sustainability, because a lot of things had been done by hand in the past, and it was not good for the people. We were not able to earn a lot as a company, and most times it wasn't that good for the for the environment, because you were burning fuel and stuff. So that was like the past. Then we went to IT, and especially modern technology like microcontrollers and things like that, and everybody thought like, okay, that's the solution. But what happened over the last couple of, let's say over the last 2 decades, is that every company started to build their own data centers. Every company started to buy their own hardware. Every company started to get their own people. And if we look back, like I would say 10, 15 years ago, I would say in a small to medium-sized company, a one-man show person could have done the whole IT, because what did we had? We had a little bit of file services, we had a little bit of email services, and some computers around. Nowadays, everything got so complex. Every production system is a computer system. We have the whole logistics, especially if you are working globally. You have all the governmental things that went electronic. So the complexity has grown. So we need even more technology. We need even more computers. We need even more people to actually take care of that. And we're still challenged. How do we do that sustainable? How do we keep people up to date with the things that are happening? How do we run all those data centers without spending fuel to create electricity for air conditioning, et cetera, et cetera? And then cloud kicked in. And cloud came mainly in with the argument about cost. And that's also one of the things that I've seen, is that in many cases, sustainability is compared to cost, which is partly true because it has an economic impact. But on the other side, we have the social and environmental piece, and I guess alive and the environment you cannot weigh in money. So that's the challenge here. So now when we talk about cloud sustainability, I think from my perspective, it has 2 phases. Phase number 1 is, how is the cloud operated itself? Because on the like every data center in every company, it's a running machine that needs electricity, that needs air conditioning, that needs water, that needs space, et cetera, et cetera. So how sustainable is a cloud provider? How sustainable is their data center operations? How sustainable is how they actually do things? And once again, cloud is a huge buzzword. We all know that. And there are cloud providers out there that do a pretty good job on that, that brought down the electricity consumption compared to the performance output they do, pretty good. But there are cloud providers that do a really bad job on that. So that's the phase of like what clouds are out there and how well are they operated and how sustainable are they in their build up operations, and then also in the tear down. Like what happens to all the old disk drives? What happens to the old servers? What happens to the power units, etc.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is like, how are we using it? Imagine we can have the most sustainable house. We can build a house that's fully self-contained. It runs on solar. It runs on everything. But I take a fuel can and do a fire in the garden. So I have a super sustainable house, but I'm using it absolutely wrong. And I guess that's pretty much the same with the cloud. As cloud is available and cloud has so many cool features, people tend to use it a lot without thinking about what they're doing. And so to be mindful about your resource usage, be mindful about, for example, what data to keep. I think those are very, very important things these days, because a Teams call already spends carbon, because there is some electricity running the internet between the server and the client. So maybe not a big impact, but think about how many people use Teams every day. And now one of the questions that we could ask is, okay, cloud is cool, Teams is in the cloud, awesome thing. But are we responsible in the use of Teams meetings? Or are we having too many Teams meetings with too many people that are unnecessary? Do we store data that we really need? Or do we just store data because it's cheap in the cloud? And that all, for me personally, counts towards cloud sustainability. So the provider side, are they doing a good job? And then the user or company side, are we using the cloud in the right way and let's call it in a mindful way?
Right. No, you're absolutely right. Firstly, I love the way how you explained how it was pre-cloud, when we just had the IT app and how things have changed after cloud. And actually, you've just spoken towards the end about, the individual responsibility as well, that how we use cloud the right way. And I'm going to take this up as a separate question after a couple of minutes as well. But before we do that, as you even mentioned in your answer, that cloud not only helps us as businesses or individuals to sort of get down the cost and make our working much more efficient and streamlined. Having said that, it also sort of helps in reducing the carbon footprints in the environment altogether. And in fact, I was reading one of the articles maybe yesterday, and I'm not sure the exact statement, but it definitely mentioned that how important is it to be mindful of how are we impacting the climate, because climate change has now actually started affecting the rotation of the earth as well, to that extent. So I was just going through that article, and that just made me aware that how important it is that we use everything so mindfully. Now, before we actually deep dive into that type of question, firstly, I would, if you can just mention certain key points or key factors which helps us understand that how cloud computing is actually sort of contributing to a sustainable environment. So, if you can just mention 3 or 4 key points, I think that's going to be helpful.
Okay, yeah. Let's dive into that. I think the main benefit of cloud computing is the economies of scale. If you build one very huge data center and you do that very efficiently, and you can like house the power of thousands of companies in one big building. So like we all know cloud is not just one big building, but just to talk in pictures here, that's always easier. And what we need to think about is that like every company oversizes their data centers because we need room to grow. So if I have 10,000 companies oversizing my data center space, and I'm just talking about the facility, it's just a room, and that room needs to be cooled, that room needs to have a sufficient power supply in case I'm growing, then in many cases we also over provisioned hardware, because let's remember what happened in the times of virtualization. It was like, oh, we have this hardware, just let's over provision. And then let's put some more servers in. Oh, the performance of the VM is not good. Let's put in some more CPUs. Let's put in some more RAM, and let's see how it runs. And if every company is doing that, we have so much wasted space, so much wasted hardware, and potentially also so much wasted energy being used to cool down a room that's pretty much empty. And I've been in huge data centers of governments, of big companies, where they had like room for 10 rows of racks, and they had 4 in there. And I was like, okay, well, what's the room for? Yeah, future growth. I was like, oh, okay, interesting. And now bring that together into one big room, and say, hey, that's one data center for 10,000 companies. Still, that room will be oversized because it needs room to grow. Still, that room will have hardware that's currently not used, but it's one time and not 10,000 times. And I think that's of the one big things. And then also from that perspective, you can start centralizing energy creation and energy consumption. Like if you build data centers in strategically well-positioned areas, like in the Nordics of Europe, where it's naturally cold. So to say it in easy words is like you just open the windows left and right in the data centers, and you don't need electrified air conditioning. Or you go somewhere close to the shore, where you have wind parks, for example, that could get you sustainable energy to the systems. Or you start optimizing the flow of your hardware so that you don't carry it in trucks across the globe, but maybe you have a near connection to a harbor or something like that. And I think that's the huge benefit, because if we talk about cloud computing, we talk about services that are internet bound, so people can access it via the internet. And so I can do the decision, or the most sustainable decision for a data center location. Companies normally tend to have their data centers wherever the company headquarter or whatever is. And if that's in a super hot space in the middle of Texas, Well, then we put in a super huge air conditioning unit to actually do that. And then all our people that are working there just have to work in heat because, hey, that's where our headquarters was. And a cloud provider can partly change that. Still, they have to stay close to their customers. And that's what we see with all the big cloud providers too. But they can do some better decisions on that end.
That's right. Absolutely agree. Actually, this question actually covered the fact as well that how can, because we are seeing, right, like businesses are absolutely, my, in fact, in a couple of my podcasts previously, we discussed about migrating to cloud. Like it was a topic of one of my podcasts. And that's what we were discussing, that businesses are just moving to cloud on, at such a high speed. And now as we talk about this, I think it's essential that one should be migrate data centers, as you mentioned, or containerization. So I think that's pretty much what one should go in for. Any other strategies that you would like to add up to it?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think cloud also has a huge social impact. So that the previous sentences were mainly about environment and energy consumption and things like that, and a little bit of economies of scale. But what I think is that the social impact might be even bigger or might be even more important. What I mentioned earlier is, like, in the past, we had one admin that could run a company. Maybe not the easiest job and maybe pretty stressful, but it was possible. Over time now, it has changed immensely. And if I have a look, I work a lot with enterprise customers. For them, they had teams running updates for services, server updates, SQL updates, whatever. They had teams for that. Imagine that there is a team of like 5 people doing nothing else than running updates the month through. And then the next month comes, Patch Tuesday, and they start over again. So from a social perspective, that's a really annoying job. It's like predictable, more or less, because you exactly know when the updates will come. It's not predictable on the outcome of the patch, because maybe sometimes it breaks something or whatever. But is that really where we should use our social resources? Is that really where we put the human into something where he creates a benefit and something bigger for the world? And I think that's where cloud also helps, because especially if you move away from traditional VMs and you go into platform services and things, you stop caring about those, let's say, legacy or standard tasks about how do I set up a SQL server. To be honest, nobody cares. The important thing is it runs, it's secure, and I can use it. And now we can start thinking about what's data in our company that we should use better? What's data that we could use to maybe optimize our production lanes, to optimize our products, to help our customers to be better, whatever it is. So free up the humans to do more valuable work, or also more mentally pleasing work, because I can also imagine that a lot of people had jobs in the past patching server. Maybe there were people out there that loved patching servers, but me, no. So, and I think that social impact is also a huge one. And it's never about getting rid of people. And I know that myth has been around for cloud, like, oh my God, if we go to the cloud, we get 50% of our IT staff cut off. I've never seen that. I've normally seen the difference. Like, they went to the cloud and they had 20 people more in the end, because they figured out how great everything is and what else we could do. And now we could do AI, and now we could do some analytics, and oh my God, we need another team to do that. And I think that's the cool thing. So you don't kick people out of their jobs, but you get them into potentially even higher paid jobs or better paid jobs. And that's actually where the social sustainability really kicks in. And I think cloud is an incubator for that.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree to it. And similar discussion we had earlier as well once, and I absolutely agree. I think this is one of the benefits of cloud, that it increases the efficiency. When we talk about increasing the efficiency, that actually means manpower as well. We can put in now people to use. We can put in people in for a better task. Maybe R&D or streamlining the entire process. It doesn't mean actually getting rid of them, but making the use of cloud more efficient altogether. And I absolutely second that point of yours. We have spoken about the entire process. We've spoken about the strategies, the benefits, but I'm sure there are going to be challenges as well. While we talk about cloud sustainability. I'm sure there must be certain challenges in the process, and I think that would be great if we take that up as a last question to wrap this up all. That what are the challenges in the process of cloud sustainability?
Absolutely, yeah. There are challenges, and as I mentioned earlier, from both sides. So data centers these days use a lot of water, and that's one of the biggest impact points these days. And we heard, like in Europe, some regions that were very welcoming to data centers of the big cloud providers are now shutting down and saying, like, no, we don't want any more data centers because we're running out of water. And I think that's one of the challenges. And I know that a lot of companies are working towards how can we do different cooling methods so that we use less water. How can we store power better so that we use the sustainable energy all day? Most of the companies have a carbon neutral commitment out there to get there in the next couple of years, but that's still a big challenge because neutralizing carbon is still not a day-to-day task that every one of us can actually do. And I think that's a thing. So, like, how will that move on? And I know one of the big things right now is, especially with the growth of AI, we're putting in even more power in there. We're putting more data centers, more computers in there, more graphics cards. So that's stressing. Actually, that's also social challenging because you need more and more people to run those data centers. And also the impact on people that are living close or near to those data centers is something we have to keep in mind. And the other side is from us as users. One of the things that I've seen that I'm really angry about, to say it politely, is a lot of companies start adopting cloud, but they don't change anything in their on-premises setup. So everything we said before hasn't changed. There's still the team doing the patches on the old servers. There's still this huge data center room that's getting cooled, even though there's nothing much more running in there. We're keeping the hardware because, we paid for it and it's running another 3 years. So we're not changing our footprint locally. We have the same staff. We have the same economic impact. We have the same power usage, etc. And we started using additional services in the cloud. So why are we talking about sustainability now? We just increased our usage in a different model. So that's not good. My perspective, start shutting down local things. Shrink your data centers, get more efficient on that end. So that's the one piece. If I move to the cloud and I don't change anything locally, that's not worth it. It's cool because I can use the fancy cloud services, but it's not cool from a sustainability perspective. The other thing is, like, if I go to the cloud and I run 10,000 servers in the cloud, what has changed? Okay, now I run on a potentially more sustainable data center because I have the economies of scale and stuff, but it's still servers. I still have the people doing the patches. I still have all the manual work. I'm still running normally pretty much oversized VMs for simple tasks. That's not the best thing. So going towards modernization, getting rid of infrastructure, going into platform services or even software as a service. That's something that is really outstanding. And I know it's also a huge impact if you want to do that, because you need the people who are able to do that. You need the time, the money to actually change things. But that's where we would really go towards a sustainable world, because we get all the benefits that we've been talking about earlier for the people running it, for the environment, because we're using less consumption. And in the end, it helps me from an economic perspective because I spend less money to create the same or even better outcome for my business. And that, if you really run that down the line, there is a conversation going on about code optimization. Like, how can we optimize code to consume less power? Like, do we really use the right sort algorithm? Do we really use the right programming language? Because, like, if we do it in Python, it would be double that fast or something like that. But most companies are not there yet. Most companies are at, how do we get from Windows Server 2016 to 2022? And I was like, I get the point, but that's not the sustainable future.
I absolutely agree to you. Like you just mentioned, in fact, towards the end, that people are migrating to cloud, still keeping the on-prem on. And I think I mean, the essence of migrating to cloud is that you don't have to take care of the underlying infrastructure, the maintenance of it, the software installations and the updations. If we talk about platform as a service specifically, or software as a service, because I think platform as a service, like 50-50 responsibility is actually divided among the cloud provider and the individuals, right? And in
Yep.
software as a service, it's like almost everything is taken care of by the cloud provider. You have to just go in and start with the deployments and stuff. And I absolutely agree to that fact. I think that's like one of the most important points, that when you migrate to cloud, just start shutting down things that's on prem, because that also affects the environment, because we have your hardware, you have your servers on, right? That's sort of adding to more carbon emission, etc. So I think that's what individuals have to be definitely mindful of. And this brings us towards the end of the podcast, Eric. It was so insightful. We literally started from scratch, understanding the sustainable technology. We moved on to cloud and then deep dived into it, into each of the perspectives. And thank you so much for gracing the podcast. I have honestly got to know so much about it, and thanks to you. I'm grateful to you for that. And before we end the podcast, any signing off note from your side?
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure, and I think it's great to raise awareness about sustainability, because, as I mentioned, a lot of companies or people are using it as a buzzword these days. And I think the more people think about it and really think about, okay, what's the real meaning and what can I do to impact it, the better it is for our environment, our people, and maybe also for the economy.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you.